We see acronyms for international organizations all the time, but we never really stop to think about who those organizations are and what they do. So today we just wanted to take a quick moment to decode some of this international alphabet soup. First off is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This is a group of states who've agreed to defend each other against military and political threats from non-NATO members. NATO has 28 member states, including the US, Canada, and most of Europe. They've agreed to contribute troops and supplies for some joint military actions. Russia and Ukraine are not NATO members, but NATO has been in the news recently over the possibility of stepping in against Russia in the Ukrainian conflict. Next is the UN, or United Nations. We all generally know what that is, but you may not be familiar with the groups they're responsible for. Things like UNICEF, UNESCO, and the WHO. UNICEF is the United Nations Children's Fund. They provide humanitarian and developmental aid to children and mothers in developing countries. UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Their goal is to spread knowledge and preserve culture through international collaboration. They do things like establish literacy programs and designate protected World Heritage Sites. The WHO is the World Health Organization, also run by the UN. They're concerned with international public health, so they take on epidemics like the current Ebola outbreak in West Africa and handle other medical projects and research. Another term that pops up every so often is the G8, or the Group of Eight. This refers to both a group of leaders from 8 world nations and a series of informal retreats for those leaders. Though the G8 retreats usually also involve 1 or 2 guests, like the head of the EU, those guests aren't technically a part of the G8. Speaking of the EU, that stands for the European Union, which is a politico-economic union of 28 European nations that have agreed to accept the same currency, the euro, and the same standards for free trade and travel for their member states and citizens. They're also working towards one codified set of laws to govern things like agriculture and regional development. It's basically a very robust trade organization that allows Europe to work as one political and economic force. Another important trade organization is OPEC, which stands for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. This refers to a group of 12 oil-producing nations that collude with each other to protect their common interest in the oil market. They meet on pricing and practices to ensure that their market stays stable and their oil profits remain high. Obviously, this is considered a controversial practice for those who believe in a free market economy. The IMF, or International Monetary Fund, is another international organization that has taken some criticism lately. The IMF is basically a fund that 188 nations pay into. It's designed to assist nations that need loans or other help with economic stability. Critics accuse the IMF of having a Western bias and being overly supportive of nations that have strong ties to the US and the EU. To find out more about world events and the world in general, please subscribe to the channel. We put out 5 new videos a week, and clicking the subscribe button is the best way to make sure you get all of that info. And for a daily dose of science news, why not go check out another channel I host called D News.